It's time for reading. Get those books open, get your little ears and some audibles. Let's talk about what's going off with reading. Amy Cassandra Martinez is in here to help us with what's going off. We've done P, we've done W. Thank you so much for watching those, sticking around on Twitch. And if you're watching it on VOD or listening to it, that's all amazing. But what's happening with reading, Amy?
This is perhaps some of the cutest news, hopefully, you will receive this week. We've got children reading to therapy dogs through Zoom. And it's the cutest thing. I love it so much. So this is the Washington-based nonprofit group called People Animals Love has switched its in-person meetups to virtual sessions, obviously during this pandemic, to serve hundreds of kids per month who are practicing reading. So it's a great opportunity for kids to do that. And I mean, as you can see in the photos, it's so adorable to see the dogs be like, okay, I'm listening. There's this whole process about how to do it. But yeah, I mean, each session lasts about 12 minutes. And that just sounds like a blast. I know when I was growing up, I loved reading out loud. So to be able to read out loud to a dog sounds awesome.
Yeah,
I think we should do that for humans.
Like giving back to therapy
humans.
dogs. Oh, hey, Zelda. Maude, what are you reading to Zelda lately?
Well, you read to little Logs all the time, but I don't read to Zelda yet. But it's not saying that I won't. It's just saying I haven't. Would you like me to read to Zelda? I read children books on my YouTube channel, though, for Star Wars Day. Turns out I loved it.
Did you read ABC 3PO?
Sorry?
ABC 3PO? Is that one of the Star Wars children's books that you read?
No, it was Huey and the Porgs, and it was BB-8's big sort of like adventure or something.
I love it. I love it. Hi, Zelda. So this picture, Amy, that we're looking at right now is lots of people like on a Zoom call with their therapy dogs, and then also children reading to said therapy dogs.
Yeah, so at the top, I mean, there's two different Zoom rooms in a way. So that's what it would look like at the top. So you see the dogs very intently listening. At the bottom, it's like you kind of just start off that way, and then they just get divided off. So it's very personable. I think, especially now there's virtual adoptions. So this isn't too different, except you're just reading to dogs, which is really cool. I think they should do it for older humans, like me. I'm not a kid, but I would love to. I'd love to do it.
That's really, really cute. I'm so glad that you shared that with us, Amy.
Thank you, Amy, for that gorgeous what's going off for reading. This is a chance, though, where Trisha and I now talk about what we are currently reading, and we thought we would get a guest in to help us with what we're reading. Hector Navarro. You're muted at the moment. Welcome.
Hi.
There he is. So Hector Navarro is in my book club that we have for Nerdist, and this is something that started in October of 2016 and then ran until about February of 2019. And then we had sort of like the rest of the year off as there was a restructure. But because of the pandemic and because there was such a great demand, well, I actually kind of like applied a little bit of CPR, as I do for things that I love and can't say goodbye to, and did a bit of a Geek Bomb book club over Discord where we covered a book a month. But now Nerdist Book Club is back in action. That happens on YouTube every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And we're covering a book a month unless it's Dune, because Dune is a 6-weeker, because it is a thick boy of a book. Look at that. Good. Yep.
The way you say Dune, Maude, is almost like the way I say the month of June. It's almost the same.
Yeah, but it's a little harder at the top.
Your D almost has a flowing water quality to it. Your letter D. Mine is Dune. And yours is
beauty.
Yeah, we're reading June, and there's almost a little splish splash of water in there.
Yeah, so it's not Tuesday, it's Tuesday. So anything with a U straight after it, you soften and it's like a Y, I suppose. But how exciting has book club been?
It's awesome. It's been great. Although I wish we were reading my favorite Middle-earth character, Pablo Baggins. I think is the best character in Middle-earth, and it's underrated. Like, why weren't we reading Pablo Baggins? That's the best.
Pablo Baggins. That's what I keep saying to him. I'm like, who's your favorite character, buddy? And he goes back and forth between Pablo, who now he says is Bilbo, but Pablo and Smaug. He can't decide.
Too scary. Dune's been great. I've never read the book Dune, and Maude hasn't either, and neither has Rachel Hine, our other co-host. And it's been awesome because a bunch of people that are reading it along with us a bunch of people have read it and they're very familiar with it and they're talking about the whole series and they're able to like help us break it down and talk about everything about that. But a bunch of people are like, great, I've always needed an excuse to read this classic sci-fi book. So there it is. And so a bunch of people have kind of jumped on and started reading it with us. So I've been really enjoying it.
I have not read it, but I feel like everybody I know is reading it right now. Like everyone is tweeting about how they're reading Dune. So I feel like I'm missing out by not being on the Dune bandwagon right now.
The Dune buggy.
The Dune buggy.
Yeah, you've missed that. Well, last time we covered The Hobbit, which is why I brought it up a lot of the time in Power. And Hector, you hadn't read The Hobbit before. You'd only seen it, right?
No, I'd read The Hobbit, but I read it when the Peter Jackson like live action movies came out. That's when I read it for the first time as an adult. I hadn't read it as a kid or seen the other movies or animated movie as a kid. And I'm normally the guy that's like, I like to wait until the movie comes out before I read the book. I like to wait until I see the visual take on the world from somebody to kind of help me understand it more. And the cool thing about Dune is that I feel like I get both. Like we're waiting for the new Dune movie, which to me looks very, very exciting. I'm very excited about the director. I'm very excited about the cast. Like it looks really good. Denis Villeneuve. But before like we started reading chapter 1, week 1 a few weeks ago, I just watched the 80s Dune movie because I'd never seen it. Me and my roommates watched it. We'd never seen it. And it was a good time and it's insanity. Yeah. But that still helped me understand like bigger picture because it's a very dense world. It really is more fantasy than sci-fi because it's 10,000 years in the future. It's so far removed that like, I would say even stuff like it's closer to Game of Thrones than sci-fi like Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever. Star Wars is more relatable and closer to like our world, but the world 10,000 years in the future with humans and what they're dealing with and the mysticism involved in the world building, it is almost like fantasy world building. So to help me understand the bigger picture concepts and everything helped me kind of, as we're reading the book, tap into that stuff and not get hung up on like all of the different terminology and phrases, which can sometimes trip you up if you're reading something that's like so
the Kwisatz Haderach,
now,
all of the mumbo jumbo gibberish. Yeah.
Did either of you audiobook this, or are you both just reading the physical copy?
I'm audiobooking it, and
how do you feel about the narrator? Did I say it right?
Sorry, narrator?
Yes.
What about the narrator?
What about the narrator?
The narrator is really good. He also narrated a previous book that we did when it was Alpha Book Club, and that was the Interview with the Vampire. But they also have a cast of actors that will do and read it as if it's an audio play, which again is really helpful listening, so you can actually hear who the characters are. So that back and forth is a lot better.
I love that.
But Trisha, I want to ask you, because this is a big point of contention between Hector and I, where I always wanted to read the book before I saw the movie, whereas Hector always liked to watch the movie before reading the book. Where do you sit with that? Would you rather get your own opinion and get your own, imagination and then have see someone else's version of it? Or do you prefer to see what someone else has done that will aid you in the process of reading?
I have always thought of it as reading the book only gives me more background knowledge going into the movie and then therefore enhances my viewing of the film because I have the background knowledge. So for me, it's never been a question of like, am I ruining the movie somehow by reading the book first or ruining the book somehow by watching the movie first. If I have the opportunity to see the movie first, like for example, Lord of the Rings is a great example. I had read The Hobbit. I had never read the Lord of the Rings books because they're hard to get through. They're written like history textbooks until I saw the movies. And then I loved the movies so much that I went and then read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But normally, if I have the opportunity, I like to read the book first. Again, only because I feel like it informs the world. And then when I'm watching that movie or TV show or whatever it is with my friends and they're, kind of stuck on a part or don't understand a part, because inevitably to condense a 1,000-page book into a 2 to 3 hour film, you're going to have to truncate things. Then you can be the one that says to your friends, "Oh, well, I actually understood that. If you want to know why that is, I can tell you after the movie," or something of that nature.
That's such a great perspective, and I feel like I have never heard that from somebody when discussing this like movie, book, adaptation, TV show, book, whatever it is. I feel kind of similar to you, Trish, but the opposite, whereas I like to watch the movie or TV show And then if I do the book afterwards, the book feels like the extended director's cut of the movie.
Yes.
Right? Whereas you're going in, you're like, I've done my research. I'm like, oh, I've done the cliff notes. Now I'm ready to do the thing. So that's a really interesting
And I do
take.
something completely all together where it's like, I have my version of this. I want to see what you've done, what you've committed to. If you and I are on the same page, pun intended, or like what creative license you have applied to this and how it differs from mine.
I love that, but I worry that if I were to do what Maude does, that I would be setting myself up for comparison and for the difference and for failure.
It took me a little while to get over the fact that the twins weren't shorter and stockier in Harry Potter, that they were tall and lean.
Like that bugged you? No,
how many redheaded twins are there in the world, though?
The only one, well, there were two recently that bugged me that I was like, you hate to be the person that's like, but the book is so much better. But sometimes what the film does choose to leave out or change, I don't feel like add to the storytelling. I feel like maybe they were poor storytelling decisions. And I would say that 100% with the Dark Tower movie that came out, what were you even doing? You ruined that 100%. It was not, but people who'd never read the books are like, I thought it was kind of good. So maybe I ruined that movie for myself, but the books are fantastic. Please go read them. I felt like Stephen King or somebody back there trolled that movie hard. Like they were like, let's pick the weirdest parts of the entire book series and just put those in a movie. Like it was like, what? Anyway, that and also Ready Player One, which I understand maybe why they had to make some of the changes they did for licensing reasons.
Sure.
But the world that they paint and the way that they tell that story in the books is very, very hard to rival.
So when I was in Ready Player One, I pictured everyone's avatars as the Xbox avatar.
That's so cute.
He was wearing blue jeans and a black shirt, and I was like, oh yeah, sweet, that's easy. So that's how I pictured everyone's avatar. So when I saw the movie, I was like, well, that's just realistic, isn't it?
Oh shoot, I had a question and it completely just escaped my mind a second ago. Oh darn, I'll try to get it back here in a second.
Think about it. In the meantime, I want to shout out Ash, Ridley, and the Phoenix, which you guys can see right there in the image. This is a book by Lisa Foyles.
That's so cool.
Maude and Hector, do either of you know Lisa?
Yes.
No, unless you say...
Not
personally, but if you say something that she is known for, maybe I've heard of it. I don't know. What is Lisa...
So Lisa Foyles was on All That as a kid, if you remember the show All That.
Okay, I remember Mary Beth. I remember Amanda Bynes. You're going to have to...
Yeah, she's a redhead. She was... Anyway... Lisa, I know her personally because she then went on to make a lot of like internet content around the world of video games. So she and I got to co-host a bunch of video game content for GameSpot back in the day together. She's a very funny and witty and hilarious human being, and this is her first book, and it is a fantasy book about a 12-year-old girl who has her own phoenix and what going through life having your own magical beast is like.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it just launched. So if you're looking for a new fantasy book and completely new IP to dive into, that my guess would be is probably family friendly. I'm not all the way through it yet, but from what I've read so far, my guess is that it's family friendly. Then that's a good one, and I wanted to shout that out because I feel like writing an entire book is such a huge achievement, and I don't know that I would ever be able to do it. So anytime I have a friend that does it, I'm like, yes, you're amazing.
That is awesome.
Yeah, Lisa Foyles being amazing. It's Ash, Ridley, and the Phoenix is the name of it. But yeah, Lisa is a good human. She is. Thank you, GK Gamer Fan just linked her Twitter in chat. And Wolfmeister says, I had no idea she wrote a book. We'll have to check it out for sure. Yeah, she's an A+ human being. And in fact, she and I just hosted an Apex Legends tournament in Vegas this last year. So she's still in the gaming scene, and she was hosting a WWE show online for a while. That's like what she was. Yeah. That's why she lives in Vegas now, because she moved to Vegas to do that show.
Her on All That. I remember.
Yeah.
At all.
That's great.
For those that do want to join in with Dune, if you're in the same boat and you're like, oh, Dune has been on my to-read list for about 10, 15 years, we are only a third of the way through. So we haven't even covered we've only done it for 2 weeks, and that is the first book out of 3 books that are in there, so you can quickly catch up, listen or read, and then join us Wednesdays 5 p.m. on the Nerdist YouTube channel. Hector, have you been reading anything else on the side though?
Yeah, tons of comic books. I just finished a Star Trek novel I was very excited about. I've been reading John Carter of Mars books from 100 years ago. A bunch of stuff. I remembered what my question is too, and I want to ask you.
Yeah.
I have a theory, Trish, that I think the reason the Dark Tower didn't go great, and this is what worries me about the Uncharted video game movie adaptation, is that I heard somewhere that the makers or Stephen King himself of Dark Tower wanted to do not just a straight adaptation, but a sort of end-all be-all sequel to the series of books, because there's a cyclical nature in the books. And they're like, well, now we're going to do a movie, and it'll finally be the first time that this element in the story is different. And I worry that the same thing's happening with Uncharted, the movie with baby Tom Holland, as opposed to doing just like an Uncharted adaptation, when certain creators that have an IP that's not a movie, they say, well, we don't want to just make the movie because millions of people have already enjoyed our thing. So we're going to do it. We're going to do it different. We're going to do a different take on it. How do y'all feel about that?
I think it's very different, like having books and a text than having like a playable video game. I guess they both do establish world building properties, but I think you can have a little. So
you want to see Baby Drake? You're into that idea, but for a book, you would be like, no, there should be a 1-to-1 adaptation.
Uncharted has already done, like Uncharted 4 had a lot of flashbacks with his brother, so it's like, you've kind of seen all of Nathan Drake in that part. But I think they wanted to have Mark Wahlberg or even Nathan Fillion or someone to play the older one. But this, I think it's been going around for about 5+ years. It's been handing around. So it's like they've obviously seen the success and well done, Zelda, the likability of Tom Holland being Spider-Man, even though he did a movie with Daisy Ridley and it never saw the light of day.
Oh, yeah.
This question.
Yeah. The video game one is hard because I feel like a 1-to-1 adaptation of a video game is never going to be as satisfying because it's a different way to tell a story. When you are playing as the main character, you are fully immersed. You're making the decisions. You're the one going through the struggles. And I don't know that you can convey that same type of journey when then you go only into spectator mode. Whereas in a book, you can still be spectator mode. It's just, which vision of your spectator mode do you prefer? But for video games, it does get trickier. And so I think you need to do something different with it. And I feel like it's probably why we haven't really had a very successful video game adaptation. Our best so far is The Witcher, in my opinion. And I know that not everyone feels that way, but...
was Prince of Persia that bad? I can't remember.
Prince of Persia? I've never seen it.
Jake Gyllenhaal?
Also, people seem to like Pikachu, but that's another thing where I was like, I know somebody at some point somewhere made the decision, instead of just doing a Pokemon movie, and I heard it was Nintendo themselves. Nintendo was like, do Detective Pikachu as a movie, as like a lower risk. And so I'm kind of like, well, it's kind of not a full on, it's not really Pokemon. It's like, it's it's a different take. Exactly. It's a twist. And now we have Ryan Reynolds' voice coming out of a Pikachu, which is fine, but it's not Pokemon.
It's not Pokemon. Game Wizard 001 in chat just said The Witcher on Netflix was an adaptation of the books, though, not the game. And that's a really solid point. And that's probably why that feels like the most well-done adaptation, because it was a book adaptation, not a game adaptation.
Yeah.
Hey, Hector, thank you so much for joining us for the reading portion of this week's Power. You've been a busy guy. Where can people find you? Because you just did a Hyper RPG show, I'm pretty sure. What else have you been doing, and where can people catch you?
You can see me on episodes of DC Daily. We're doing that from home, all the DC Daily folks. But just follow me on the internet, at Hector is Funny, if you like. And it was so great to see you. Maude, I see you, and it's a highlight of the week. Trish, I haven't seen you in forever, and I miss you very much, and you're lovely, and you're fantastic. Amy, it's great to see you, too. It's awesome to see you. So I hope to see you guys soon.
Thanks for joining us, Hector. You're the best.
Bye.
All
We're
right,
going to do
Amy.
Bombs away, though. This is where you guys get to ask questions. Amy is going to come in. Oh, Amy.
Hector actually left us. Okay, so yeah, we're going to...
Hello.
Hey, there you are.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Yeah, so this first question is from Bomber backer Steven Summers, but I will be getting one from a Twitch viewer right now. But first, yes, Steven Summers asks, what is your most memorable D&D character? And how do you think your character is doing now?
I certainly know mine.
Most memorable D&D character? Mine would be a character who, this is so nerdy. I was in high school and I was taking Latin, so of course I made my Air Genasi named a Latin name. So her name was pronounced with the classic Latin pronunciation, Visti Vertex, spelled Visti Vertex, and it is Latin for tornado because she was a chaotic neutral Air Genasi mage. And
cool.
Yeah, and she was my favorite. She's also the one that, if you've ever heard me tell the story about my DM killing my character because she got too high level for the rest of the party, instead of just retiring and rolling a new character, he murdered my character. And not just nicely murdered, like, oh, remember that NPC from a while back that you got friendly with? Turns out he was an incubus, and you're pregnant. And when I gave birth to the demon baby, that killed my character. So there was, like, nothing I could even do to get out of it.
Most memorable character also got pregnant because I wanted to roll a performance check when I was in the SAC, and I got a 20, and the DM's like, what do you want to have happen? And I was like, I'm pregnant. But we utilized that because someone else in the group died, like a true death, because they set off a meteor spell accidentally on them.
Oh.
So they were dead. Yeah, like 86 points of damage. And so what ended up happening is that when I gave birth, that character, who was actually the baby's daddy, played as the baby, who, like, because he was a tiefling and he, I think, was worshipping Tiamat or something like that, the demon baby kind of like grew up quicker, and so he played the father and then the son.
That's cool.
So that was really cool. But that character, her name was Lenka. I've played 2 iterations of Lenka. When I first played D&D in 2012 with the 4th edition, she was an assassin, and then again 2 years ago up to last year, and she was actually 2016 and 17, 18-ish, and she ended up being an assassin, and then I dual classed her as an arcane archer. So basically you could never see her, and then I would go into stealth, and so my damage was just through the roof, and no one would ever touch me. It was fantastic. So I kind of loved playing a 4th and 5th edition version of this character. I have a Fungions subreddit, where I put up all the details and pictures and all the, inspirations for all of my characters. So you can see Lenka there. But she was just so sassy and fun, and I loved her backstory. But what was fantastic, and I kind of still have it on my computer, the DM when I played 4th edition was my brother's best friend from high school, and he and I have stayed in touch, and he's such a legend because he's a director, a writer, and an actor.
Cool.
So he's the best kind of DM that you can get. He had an NPC character in this campaign that I decided, because Lenka was very starved of love, and so they ended up falling in love. And then when I moved to LA, the campaign kept going, but he still built Lenka into the storyline, where the NPC and Lenka were basically spending their time together. Every single birthday, I would get an email, which was a letter from the NPC character Vereza to my character Lenka. And he was writing to her and like telling like an excerpt of like the adventures that they were up to. And it was the highlight of my life. And there's one that I have here. The tavern was packed, but Will Vereza had very little trouble finding a table as a few patrons offered their own to the local hero. The bartender waved from across the room and Vereza motioned for the usual drinks. He glanced about looking for someone in particular, but she was nowhere to be seen. And so he'll like write dialogue and like the whole play of Vereza trying to find Lenka at the prearranged bar that they were supposed to meet at, and then a brawl comes out, and it's very much like a Gimli, Legolas kind of thing where they're keeping tallies of how many people they've killed, and it's like this beautiful relationship that's lasted since 2012. How cool is that?
It. That's so fun.
Sick. So shout out to Nick, who's amazing. As soon as lockdown happened, I was like, hi, I have a Roll20 account. We can play D&D. I don't have time to do this, and I frankly shouldn't do this. Let's do this. And he didn't write back to my email.
Yay. He will someday.
Yeah. This next question is from Critter Nation 3000. What are your thoughts on the rumors Disney wants to do a live-action Kingdom Hearts of Plus?
A live-action Kingdom Hearts on Disney Plus?
That makes sense. On Plus, yeah.
Is that a thing?
How would not ever seeing a live-action Mickey?
How would you do a live-action? I don't know how you would do a live-action Kingdom Hearts. That's like, okay, we have talked about how weird Kingdom Hearts is before on this show, I think. Yeah, it's very weird. I'm a huge fan, but I embrace how bizarre it is, and that's part of, it's actually a lot of what I enjoy about it. That I can bring up the merry-go-round from the center of Disneyland and murder ball people with it. I think it's hilarious. I enjoy it. And then, you have Mickey going to very deep psychological places, and it's very funny to me. But how they would do a live action version of it, when a lot of the games, your main characters are Goofy and Donald and Mickey,
Oh my god, a live action Pluto. I guess it's just a dog, so that's okay.
I
was
mean,
picturing
I guess they could do it like Who Framed Roger Rabbit style, where it's animated and live action.
That could be fun.
Put
I don't know
together.
if it's still
Yeah, Critter Nation says they also called Lion King live action. So yeah, I'm with you.
No, that was just a new animation.
But a CGI Mickey would be weird. We haven't seen a CGI-esque live action Mickey. I feel like that would be.
Yeah, it's as pretty as they come. Yeah.
That would be pretty bizarre.
Do we have a question from?
That was from Twitch.
Yeah, that one was from Twitch. So thank you, everybody, for your questions, both on Geek Bomb's Patreon and here on Twitch Asking Live. You guys are awesome sauce. So let's see. Okay, we still have Maude. You just look a little shorter.
That's all right.
That's all right. Well, thank you, everybody, so very much for watching the reading portion of Power Up. Thanks again to Hector for coming on the show because he's an amazing human being. And if you want to see Maude and Hector talk more about Dune, remember to do that on Nerdist Book Club. And yeah, thank you guys for watching.
Thanks. We're going to be back next week with a special guest. A lot of you guys who've been in the comments or subscribing or commenting down below or subscribing or following or commenting have actually requested this person. So,
yes, requested this guest. So fingers crossed. Okay, thank you, everybody. See you soon.
Bye.